My name is Jeanette Hughes. I'm Project Manager for the City Observatory, and I'm the only woman presenter tonight, so that gives you a clue. What I'd like to talk about tonight is the Institute of Future Cities and the City Observatory and how we see the future. I've made the analogy of Back to the Future because probably most of you in the room would have had a Back to the Future poster or watched the movie a number of different times. And the analogy is that Back to the Future looked into the future to try and predict what was going to happen next. And I think it's a good analogy for the City Observatory. One thing that Back to the Future did do is not just look to the future for ideas, but also reflected in the past, what happened in the past, and how was the future going to change. And they had different dates that they were going for, and actually October the 21st, 2015 was their future prediction. They predicted lots of things, and these are probably common to those Back to the Future fans in the audience. And a couple of things has kind of came to reality. The Google glasses, maybe weren't called the Google glasses, but they look something similar. The flying car hasn't quite made it. But what this shows is it's very hard to predict the future. However, as we've been discussing tonight with lots of different presentations, technology is advancing at a rate of knots. There's the Internet of Things, there's wearable technology, and all of these things will blend in to actually allow us to predict in a better way how populations are moving around cities. We have got key challenges that we know that we're going to hit, one of them being the demographic shift. Igor is going to present this in more detail, but what it's shown is populations are going to rise in cities, demographics, older populations, people that are living in a single dwelling is going to rise, and by 2050, over 70% will live in city dwellings around the world, with China and India being big increases. So what does that mean? What it means is we need to plan. We need to plan for the future and plan for whatever that city may look like. Now, it's still going to need critical systems. It's going to need to plan for transport, energy, health, and all the things that make cities come alive and work for us. We don't know what that's going to look like, so within the City Observatory, we have to look at lots of different scenarios. The good thing today is we don't have to do it in silos. Data today and working relationships and stakeholders and technologies allow us to actually bring things together. And that's one thing that the City Observatory is very much focused on, is using that as a catalyst to move the Future Cities agenda forward. Another key element is that the University of Strathclyde is very focused on this, with key stakeholders like Glasgow City Council. We've got senior management behind it. Her Royal Highness actually opened the City Observatory on the 3rd of July this year. It's a key focus, and we're very much open for business. But what we're open for business for is actually looking at what's the key challenges, what's the key problems that we think we're going to. It's okay collecting data, as we're going to talk about, but you've got to collect it for a purpose. And you've got to realise what you're trying to achieve before you start on your journey. So at the City Observatory and the Institute for Future Cities, we've developed a lot of different things that will help, whether it's research focused, whether it's business focused or government focused. Open data portals where we're pulling data from all around the world. Glasgow obviously being the city we live in, we've got lots of data about that, but we've also got data about Chicago, as mentioned, and other cities. If we look at one project that we've actually done a kind of end-to-end solution, it's crime. And what we've realised in looking at problems is open data and closed data is equally as important. And closed data is more difficult to work with, but it's important. What we want to do with that data is actually bring it together. That is pretty novel and pretty complex to do, converging the data, analysing the data, and then modelling the data. Again, going back to scenarios, because we don't know what's really going to happen in the future, but we can plan for different scenarios. The most important thing, I think, to actually get to the policy makers, the decision makers of what a future city will look like, is actually trying to make it easy for them to understand. If I showed them all the spreadsheets, all the mathematicians and statisticians would maybe understand a bit, but actually it's this kind of presentation that allows people to understand what's happened in the past, but equally what can happen in the future. So this is a crime data that we've analysed, showing that car crimes reduced since 2004, and actually violent crime is reduced by 75% in the last 10 years. The other important aspect is using the data to actually model what happens when you do a particular intervention. So if you're somebody sitting thinking, where will I spend my money from the budgets, or what business will I go after, this kind of modelling is really important. What this is showing is if we increase street lighting, violent crime comes down, but at what cost? And actually, is every area within the cities the exact same? The answer is no. So there's lots of different scenarios and variables that go on. However, with the availability of big data and the availability of technology and expertise that we have, the lab isn't constrained to four walls nowadays. The lab is actually the cities that we live in, the people that move about the cities, the things they do, the technology they use, and all of that can be gathered and analysed with what we have today. So I'd like to end my talk there, and thank you all for coming to the City Observatory.